I'm Brian Salter from Salter Racing Engines, and I hope this video helps you understand the truth about lobe separation angle, valve overlap, duration, and characteristics of camshafts. So sit back, enjoy, and thank you. Hello folks, thanks for joining us today. My name is Brian Salter, and I hope that this video enlightens you on lobe separation angle and valve overlap, and we're also going to talk a little bit about duration and lobe lift, lifted valve, those type of things. I am very new to YouTube. In fact, this is my first video. Don't have much time to make videos, so I'm just now maybe trying to get into it. So I hope this helps you. I've seen a lot of videos out there with some people explaining lobe separation and valve overlap, and some of them are good, but I worry that some of the novices are new to this type of thing, maybe just don't quite understand it. So I hope to break it down to where you can. So the question was posed: what makes a race engine sound like a race engine? Or what makes a street rod have that nice thumpity thump sound from the exhaust? And there have been responses such as, oh well, it's lobe separation angle, it's a tight LSA. And then there's been people come back and say, well, it's not tight LSA, it's overlap. Well, in actuality, they're both correct. And also, yet they're leaving out a third thing that affects that. So lobe separation angle is, to be exact, the distance between the intake and exhaust center lines, we're talking about the lobes, or the peak lift points of the intake and exhaust cam lobes. The distance between these two lobes is the lobe separation angle. And if you have a single cam engine, once that camshaft has been made and ground, that lobe separation angle cannot be changed. If you have a dual overhead cam situation, meaning you have a separate exhaust cam and a separate intake cam, that rule does not apply. The LSA can be changed by simply advancing or retarding the cams on the if you have an adjustable cam gear, and that will give you practically infinite LSA adjustment. But now keep in mind, that engine still wants to be at a particular lobe separation angle for peak performance. So don't get carried away. Yes, you can set the LSA, if you have that type of adjustment, you could set it to 80 if you wanted to, and you can set it as wide as 180 if you wanted to. Your engine's going to run pretty awful, and so you don't want to do that. You want to find the optimum place for your lobe separation angle. I've also heard people say, oh, LSA is not something that we worry about. Well, I can tell you, after setting many records, championships, winning lots of races, LSA matters. It matters a lot. It is one of my first inputs. And I'll tell you, it also depends on what I'm trying to do with the engine. So I want to keep that in mind. I'm not here to talk about what it does. I want to make sure you understand what it is. We can talk about what it does in a later video. Also, what is camshaft duration? Camshaft duration is the amount of time it takes for the valve to open and close, measured in your crankshaft degrees. The camshaft lobe lift, a lot of people don't understand what lobe lift is. Your camshaft has what we call a toe, which is the peak, what I call the toe, and in the base of it is the heel. So that's the difference between that measurement there and then the base circle. Subtract the two, you get your lobe lift. That's actually how much it's going to raise the lifter out of the bore or push the follower down, or however you want to look at it. So what is overlap? This is the great question. Valve overlap is when the intake valve and the exhaust valve are open at the same time. When this occurs, you're going to get that choppy race engine sound, primarily at lower RPM ranges. Once you reach, depends on how big the cam is and how much overlap it has. Once you reach 3,000, 3,500 RPMs, a lot of times they'll tend to clear up. I've had some race engines that don't clear up that soon. They'll clear up a little later. But it affects the engine in a multitude of ways, and we also will go into that at a later video as well. So imagine you have the intake valve and the exhaust valve open at the same time. That is overlap, and that causes a very mild misfire. It's not a problem, but that's what makes that sound. Again, overlap is very beneficial. You can have way too much and you can have not enough. It depends on what you're doing with it. And I'm not even going to try and confuse you with how many things in the engine actually dictate where that should be. But I can tell you it goes from the induction system right on down to the last inch of the tailpipe will dictate what that overlap will be best at, and also what you're trying to do with it. A tractor pull, towing a trailer, circle track, drag racing, just going to the store and back, or just trying to make noise, just having a tire fryer, whatever the case may be, they all have different needs. So keep that in mind. And now I'm going to show you what changes your overlap. I'm going to be using a computer software because the graphs are very simple and very easy to understand. So as I show you, I'm going to set one up. It will be a stock engine with a stock camshaft, nothing performance about it, and you're going to see the overlap of that engine from the factory. Okay, the overlap will probably be nothing, and I'm going to show you a image of that on a chart, and then we're going to start making some changes and watch what happens to our overlap. Because again, the end result is if I tighten up my lobe separation angle, generally speaking, always, I'm going to increase my overlap. Always. If I grow my duration of the lobes, whether it be intake or exhaust, I'm making the lobe keep the valve open longer, I'm going to increase my overlap. Always. If I have a very aggressive cam ramp or a very lazy cam ramp, that will affect my overlap. Always, 100% of the time. So all these things affect how much overlap the camshaft has. Do not be fooled. Not anybody tell you the LSA does not affect overlap, because it 100% does. Do not let anybody tell you, well, it's duration only or this, that, and that. No, it is affected by all of those things I mentioned. And it could be important to you. It could be not important to you. I'll let you decide that. The main goal of this video is to understand what it is. When you hear those terms, do you understand what is even being talked about? Okay, so I want to take a couple minutes and just show you how to measure toe heel and base circle. And what I'm going to do is I've got a camshaft here that I've cut in half, and I'll give you a close-up of how to measure the toe heel, how to measure base circle, and how that we arrive with the lobe lift and the lifted valve. So first of all, it's important that you have a consistent tool such as a digital caliper of somewhat good quality, and that the caliper is clean. And I'm going to show you a simple trick to make sure it's clean. Grab just a piece of notebook paper, squeeze it into your jaws, and pull it out. That will actually lift the caliper off that dirt a thousandth or two or even more sometimes. So I'll continue doing this until it's absolutely clean. Okay, and once that's done, I will then take my caliper and I will zero it. Now, toe heel. Here we have a typical cam lobe. This is a flat tappet cam lobe, but if it was a roller, it's still the same. Little A little different look to it, but still the same. This is the toe, this is the heel. I'm going to take my caliper and I'm going to come here like so. And I hope you can see the number, so I'm going to rotate it until I get the largest number. .598 inches. That's 1 inch 598 thousandths and 0 tenths. Then I'm going to come to the base circle. And I'm going to rotate until I get the smallest number. There it starts to grow again. So my smallest number is 1 inch 270 thousandths. Alright, now I'm going to show you how to get the lobe lift from those two numbers. Okay, as you can see, we had the toe heel measurement was 1 inch 598 thousandths. Base circle was 1 inch 270 thousandths. That gives me a lobe lift of 328 thousandths of an inch. Depending on your rocker arm ratio, you're going to take the rocker ratio, whether it's 1.5, 1.6, 1.8, 2.0, whatever it may be, multiply that rocker arm ratio by your lobe lift, and that will give you the actual lift at valve. If it's a solid lift camshaft, whether it's roller or flat tappet, you would then subtract the lash from that total valve lift. So if the valve lift was 500 and you had 10,000 slash in it, you're actually opening the valve 490 thousandths. And that's how that's done. Alright, also I took the cam and I broke it and I made it where I could twist it. What I'm trying to show you is actual lobe separation. And for example, a wide lobe separation is where the peak of the intake and the peak of the exhaust is further apart. Okay, this would be an example of a very wide lobe separation. A narrow or tight lobe separation would be closer together. Now this has a very, very distinct effect on the role it plays in the operation of the engine. There are benefits to both. I'm going to show you what this does and also how this affects overlap, because as you'll hear, or as you have heard, what makes a race engine sound racy, what makes a street rod sound thumpity, and a lot of people say, oh well, you have a tight lobe separation angle, and then some people say, well, it's overlap. Well, the fact of the matter is they're both right, and yet they've still left out even another dimension to be measured. And I'm going to show you how duration affects that as well. Overlap, in the end, is what affects the rough idle quality of a racing engine. But overlap is dictated by your lobe separation angle and your duration, and also the profile of the cam lobe itself. We're going to show you that right here in just a second. So wide lobe separation, narrow lobe separation. Okay, so here we have just a basic 350 with a very mild stock camshaft. It's the one it might have come with from the factory, and this camshaft is nothing I've put in. It is computer generated, but it is a very low performance economy camshaft. All right, so the numbers we have here are, as you can see, at 50 thousandths lift, the duration is 200, and the seat to seat duration is 252 on the intake. Exhaust duration at 50 thousandths lift is 206, and seat to seat is 261. The factory, the lobe separation angle is 109.3, and they have it dialed in about 3 degrees advanced for the intake center line to be 106. And of course, with that 3 degrees, you're going to lose out on the exhaust. That comes in 112. So everything's looking perfect. Notice your valve overlap is 38. Okay, 38 on the overlap. That is seat to seat timing. I'm going to click it here to 50, and now we're looking at the lobes down here from an at 50 lift standpoint. Okay, notice that my valve overlap has changed to negative 15.5. In fact, at 50, I have no overlap at all, as you can see down here by the graph. So what is my point? My point is this camshaft should have a very high vacuum, a very smooth idle, good low RPM torque. And I say low RPM torque, I mean below 3,500 RPMs. It ought to be fairly strong and good for daily driving. We're going to switch it back to seat to seat. All right, and again, what affects overlap was the question, and do you understand it? So 38 is from the factory at seat to seat. There is no overlap at the 50-50 measurement. Now I'm going to make a simple change. We will take the LSA and we're going to move it to about 90. Okay, and then we're going to take the intake and we're going to dial it straight up and put it also at 90. And I want you to look what's happened to your overlap now. It went from 38 to 76.5. So you're saying, well, does that mean this cam is now going to thump? That's exactly what it means. This cam will now thump like a little race cam, even though it has hardly any duration and not very much lift either. So let's now take that lobe separation angle and take it from, it was 109. Let's take it to 120. And we'll also dial it in straight up. Yes, I know. Take that 120, apply. Now here at seat to seat, you have an overlap of 16.5. You can see it's barely doing anything down here. Okay. Now I can advance the cam. Let's advance it 6 degrees. So that'll be 114 on our intake center line. Apply. And you'll notice my overlap stayed the same. My intake center line does not affect valve overlap, but my lobe separation angle does drastically. All right, so let's get back down to 109. Put our factory cam back where it was originally. All right, we're back to the original specs of the overlap being 38.5. And we know that's going to be a smooth idle, high vacuum, good for brakes, good for lots of things. At 50, again, no overlap at all at the 50 thousandths lift numbers. Go back to seat. Now again, I told you that duration affects your overlap. So let's take this up to race engine duration, okay? So at 50, we're going to take it from 200 to, let's just say 250. And we'll take the advertised to 300. And we'll take this to 254. And 304, we're just keeping it simple. And we're going to apply. Now, my lobe separation angle is still 109. My lift is still down here at 435 thousandths on the intake. But now look at my overlap. It is now 84. That is a heck of a gain in valve overlap. So you're saying, well, Brian, is it going to thumpity thump? Oh, man, absolutely. It's going to have hardly any vacuum at all, and it's going to thump really hard. Now, remember, at 50, the stock cam had no overlap at all. Well, not much. Let's click 50, and now you're at 34 at 50 on the overlap, as you can see. And you are at 84 just from changing the duration. Now let me show you something. We got a large duration camshaft, and really guys, this is not large. This is a mild, 8,000 RPM solid roller or something like that. But for the street it'd be fairly large. Now let's take this 109 LSA and let's move it on out to about 116. Okay, we're going to move that to 116. We'll put this at 112. We'll put it in 4 degrees advanced. Apply. Now look what happened to my overlap. It came way down. It was over 80. Now it's at 70. So let's widen on out there some more. Let's put it at 125. And we'll put this at 125, dial it in straight up, apply. Now look at my overlap. It's at 52. Let's take that and go to 50,000 lift readings. And we're at 34 at 50. Our seat to seat numbers are 52. So you can see that all of these things, the duration, the LSA, all of these things affect your valve overlap. And down here, follow my arrow, down here where those two intake and exhaust lobes hold that valve open at the same time, that's what this is right here, where you see them cross, that intake and exhaust valve is open at the same time, and this number is how long that happens. That's what that is in short, okay, I'm gonna oversimplify it. This is a measurement of time, basically. Okay, so the larger this number, the more time they are open together. All right, so when you see this right here, it's going to have the thumpity sound. Now, what all does this affect? A lot of things. Complete characteristics of that engine can be dictated by what's going on in this area right here. All right. You say, well, how come stock vehicles like cars with electronic fuel injection or throttle body, that type of thing, why do they have wider lobe separation angles? Well, I can tell you, contrary to what some YouTubers are saying, I really don't care what YouTubers say. I'm here to give you facts. That the reason it's done that way is because when you have overlap, no matter which way it was created, when you have overlap, you have basically unsteady pulses in the intake. And that's oversimplifying it, but that's really what's going on. When you have electronic fuel injection, it absolutely must have a steady measurement of air from one of two places. Either from the MAP sensor, manifold absolute pressure sensor, that's in the intake manifold, or from the airflow meter that's outside the air inlet duct. You can have a vehicle that has both of those at one time, or you can have a vehicle that only has a MAP sensor. Okay, so the one that only has a MAP sensor, manifold absolute pressure, that is called the speed density style fuel system. The ones that have the mass airflow meter are called the mass airflow meter fuel systems. And I have found that mass airflow meter systems are less prone to be sensitive to tighter LSAs than, say, just a MAP speed density. Now, I know that other people may say, well, I found the opposite. And look, it's fine. It really depends on the ECM you have and the whole way it's set up. So I'm not here to argue that. Let's not argue over stupid things. All right, but I have had a couple Fords, actually, we've done some work on. And we had a cam ground, a very small cam with hardly any overlap, and I don't remember the numbers, but it would not idle with just the MAP sensor, and I wasn't going to take the motor back apart. So what I did was I found a Mustang GT California model that had a mass airflow meter on it, and I managed to get the ECM shipped to me, and we put a mass airflow meter on the truck, and it ran perfect. Okay, that's all it needed. So you're going to run into things like that if you do different modifications. But understanding overlap, understanding lobe separation angle, and what they are is the first key to understanding what to do with the camshaft. The camshaft shapes the characteristic of that engine. Absolutely shapes the characteristic. It is the character. It's the heart of that engine. Now, obviously, you know, for a professional like myself and other pros, they know that there's a lot going on just besides a camshaft, okay? A lot going on besides that. But I wanted to make sure you understood what these terms are, how we come to measure them. Are they important? Are they not important? I didn't want to overwhelm you with a bunch of graphs and charts that you don't know what you're looking at and they're confusing. And quite frankly, I get tired of hearing some of the bull crap that gets stated on YouTube. It's laughable, some of the things I hear. But you can take my word for it. Everything you've heard in this video is 100% accurate. So, with that being said, hopefully you understand by now what these terms are. And feel free to message or comment if you have a question or anything about this video that we might can help you with.